Hello and welcome to the Little Self-Care Club 66-day self-care challenge, day 4. And today I'm going to do my best to tell you about why I care so passionately about self-care. Now, it's not necessarily going to be the easiest story for me to tell, and I've been quite anxious about it all day, knowing that I'm probably going to be talking about this today. But this is my story, my mental health story, if you like. So in 2013, I had glandular fever. So where I used to work, we were working ridiculous hours, but it massively benefited everybody that did it, right? It was by choice, largely, except for the occasions that it was like we desperately need help. But we were working like 11 days on, 3 days off, or 12 days on, 2 days off. So we were working like we were only having a weekend every other weekend. And I bought a house in July of 2013, and that was in the July, and in the September I'd had such bad pain with my back. I'd been going through treatment via the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, and for many reasons that just did not work out. One of them basically being that they told me at 23 years old that I was going to have to learn to manage my pain, and I was going to be referred to the chronic pain management team, where they would deal with my prescription, deal with my pain meds. So bear in mind that I was already on the strongest cocodamol that you can be on in the daytime, and I was on a drug called tramadol in the evening, like in the nighttime, to be able to get some sleep. My body would just, like my back would just give in. I would be walking along and I would literally just like my leg would just go from underneath me. I was in constant pain, constant like spasm within my back. I was just in a lot of pain. So because the NHS wasn't able to help me for, I don't really know why, they didn't get me out of pain, let's put it that way. So I started searching for alternatives. I went to start to see the chiropractor in the September, and in the December I went to the chiropractor, and I was actually having my massage before I was having my manual adjustment, like my chiropractic adjustment, and I just could not stop shaking, uncontrollably shaking, like I was just shivering all over. I just had this awful fever. We didn't know what was going on, so they took me to see the actual chiropractor. And then the chiropractic assistant, Molly, who is a very, very dear friend of mine now. At the time we were friends, but we'd like not long met. But now is like one of my best friends. She took me to A&E. So I was told in a corridor that I might have viral meningitis. And I was put in a room in isolation completely on my own. I was terrified by the time I got to the room. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning or something. I'd been for a chest x-ray. It was just terrifying. I didn't really know what was going on, because when you hear meningitis, it's quite a scary word. Like there's a lot of people that have real massive problems after having meningitis, and I just didn't know what was going on. So I stayed the night, and then they discharged me because they said that I didn't have meningitis, which was great, but that they didn't know what I did have. So after being really, really poorly, I was going backwards and forwards to the hospital to having tests, going to see consultants. At one point I had a consultant standing over me with like pulling my eyes about like this with a torch, saying, "I don't understand how you're not jaundiced because of your levels for your liver were so high. They were meant to be less than 60 and they were like 600 and something." And I was like, wow, okay. I had glandular fever, and glandular fever hits different people differently. For me, it was horrific. Like I couldn't even get myself into and out of the bath. I couldn't have a shower because I couldn't stand long enough to have a shower. I had to move back in with my mum because, as I say, I couldn't wash myself, care for myself, anything. I could barely eat because every time I did, I threw up. It was a horrific experience. I was really, really poorly for over a month. And from that, I then ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome. But they won't diagnose that until you're over 6 months past post-viral infection, post-viral fatigue, sorry. So they class it as post-viral fatigue, and then it takes some time. During the period where I had post-viral fatigue, I had to have some time off work. Obviously I was off work for the entirety that I was on, like I was ill, which was the whole of December. And then went back in January. I had to go on light duties. I had to finish I had to do half days to try and phase me back into work because the fatigue was that horrific. And I found myself in such a bad place mentally that by the May of that year, I didn't know I was depressed, but I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. Those are words that I hadn't really considered to be something that I would struggle with. I am from a family where my nan and my mum are like super strong, independent women, and they do everything and they're so strong and we don't worry about it, we just get on with it. And you know, like that really macho, actually, like way of life. You know how we typically see that towards men, and gladly we're coming out of that phase now. We're trying to encourage everybody to talk about their mental health and their well-being, but it was very much a macho, like, come on, just get on with it, you just need to get done, just get it sorted, just get on with it. So that wasn't something that I would ever assimilate to. That wasn't something I would have ever recognised in myself. Like, I knew I got anxious about stuff, but I would have phrased it as stressed. I would have said I'm really stressed. I wouldn't have ever said that I had anxiety. And I remember saying to the doctor, no, I'm stressed. I've got a lot going on. I'm just stressed. And he was like, stress, anxiety, and depression are in a triangle. And likelihood is, yes, stress is kind of like where you would perhaps start, but the likelihood is that, you know, with the scores that you've given me on the I can't think of the word, like the assessment that you do, like you're struggling with all three. And I was like, right, okay. I said, so what happens now? And he said, well, it's probably a good idea for you to try antidepressants. I said, I don't want those. He said, well, why don't you try them? And now my doctor has been has always been really supportive of me, but I'd seen him a lot because of the glandular fever and all of the follow-up with it. I was having to have so many different blood tests because to be able to be diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, you have to rule out like 16 other things. So you have to have all of these blood tests. And bear in mind, before this, I was terrified of needles. Now I kind of have just had to get used to them. I don't like them, but yeah. And then he said to me about going on antidepressants and I said, you know, I was really uncomfortable about it. And he said, why don't you try them and see how you get on? And I was like, still not convinced. So he explained a bit more about antidepressants. So my understanding with regard to antidepressants is that they're a short-term thing for this particular use. So the antidepressant that I was described was citalopram, which is an SSRI. And it basically, the way he explained it to me, which I think is a really good analogy for it, is that currently you're in a position where if you consider yourself as a bath, the tap's running and the bath water is overflowing. The idea of the antidepressants is that it gives you that extra capacity, so it raises the walls of the bath such that you can deal with what's going on in your life, and then hopefully you can take the plug out effectively, and then the water can start to drain and you can manage again, and then you can come off the antidepressants. That's how it was explained to me. And so I reluctantly said that I would try them, but I would try them on a trial basis. And he said, absolutely, you would be here for a 6-month review anyway. So that's what we did. He said to me, any issues? He said, any issues, then please call and get an emergency appointment ASAP. So I had my 6 week review booked in, and the day before it, I had a major breakdown at work. Like, I had no control at this point. I just knew that my reaction was not right. I didn't feel like myself. I felt like something was going on. I was Jodie physically, but I was not Jodie up here. So I called up and I got an emergency appointment like I was told to do, and they put me in with a different doctor. It was an emergency appointment, you get the doctor that's available. I spoke to this doctor and I said, you know, I need to come off these tablets. I've just had this breakdown, like it's horrific. He said, what's changed in your life? I said, what? Nothing's changed. Or something must have changed in the last 6 weeks for you to have reacted like this. This isn't, you know, it's not the drugs. Right, but I don't feel like myself on these drugs and I don't want to take them anymore. And he said to me, there's no way that these drugs could make you react like this because you're on a child's dose. And I said to him, in true Jodie style, well, stick your drugs, I'm not taking them, and walked out. Now, I was on a low dose of drugs, of SSRIs, and I knew that to be the case, but you can get withdrawal symptoms. So please don't take this as license to go and just come off of your antidepressants. Please don't do that. Please do be responsible and speak to you, like who's prescribed them to you, and work out how you do that best. So I didn't take the tablet that day, and I had my appointment the next day, and I said, I'm not taking these. So I said to my doctor, there must be another way. I can't have to take these tablets. It's not right that somebody should have to take these tablets. So I was able to research into different things that I could do to help myself in my mental state at the time. And one of the things was I did go and get some counselling. I also started using St John's wort, which is a herbal remedy, but again, please be responsible, do your research, because it can interfere with contraception, so hormonal contraception, so please don't just take that. Please do look at the consequences of that and speak to a healthcare professional before doing so. And also I started using essential oils. So it was actually my massage therapist who had said, you could use essential oils. And I said, okay, great, I'll do anything. Like, we'll do anything to get out of this situation. And I said, what would be the best one? She said, well, uplifting scents are typically citrusy. So you might want to try a citrusy one. So the one, I ordered several, and the one that I decided that I liked the most was bergamot. And I would put it on a tissue, I would tuck it into my bra, and I would have it with me all day. And at any point that I felt overwhelmed, anxious, stressed, I would literally just smell my essential oil on my tissue. And so with that work and researching other people, YouTube was a great source for me. It made me feel less alone because there were other people that were going through similar to me. With that, I felt that I was starting to make progress. There was a trigger at one point that meant that I felt really, really very low. And I knew that I still had the tramadol in my house. And I also knew that I had vodka in my house. And I was really, really upset by what had triggered me. And I just said to myself about the fact that these drugs and this alcohol was downstairs. And I just laid in bed absolutely frozen, not wanting to leave my bed, because if I did, I didn't know what I would do. So I just stayed in bed and I didn't move. And I just waited for the feeling to pass. And thankfully it did. So time goes on, I go through the counselling. The counselling was actually more, it was called DIT therapy, which is dynamic interpersonal therapy. So that helped me deal with things around like some family stuff that I had some difficulty with growing up and into adulthood, obviously. So I started to feel a lot better. I did a lot of research, I did a lot of work on myself, I did a lot of reading, a lot of listening to, as I say, YouTube, like watching YouTube. I reached out to lots of people. I think I'd become quite isolated and I hadn't really realised it, so I made sure that I had people that I could speak to, and with time my mood improved and my depression improved such that I was taking St John's wort and I had the essential oil in my bra for a good two and a half years. That's something that helped me massively. And during that time also, at home I had an oil diffuser, so you know, the ones with the water, so you put a few drops of the essential oil in it and then you diffuse it into the room. That would help me too. You can put essential oils, as long as they're in a carrier oil, you can put them on your skin, so you can research and put stuff on your skin, and you can also put it in the bath as well. So all of those things really helped me. And so as part of my recovery, I focused very much on what I guess the term now for that is self-care. So hence I feel so strongly about self-care. And the reason is it saved my life. Like it made me be able to stand here today and try and help other people, because ultimately that is what the Little Self-Care Club is. That is what I want to achieve with the Little Self-Care Club, is to be able to help other people that may not be in as deep of a situation as I am, may not be in, maybe in a worse situation than I was, but ideally to help people to recognise that and catch that in themselves before it gets to that point. And that's why I believe so strongly in self-care and the importance of prioritising it. You're not selfish for prioritising self-care at all. Like, get that out of your head. You need self-care. You need it. So I'd been working in quite a high pressure job and a male dominated industry, which didn't help with all of the things that were going on for me in that time. But in 2019, I'd saved up some money. The job that I had was coming to an end because it was on a contract basis. And I would have had to have worked away again, which I had done for 3 years and didn't want to do that anymore. So instead of doing that, I saved up some money to have some time off to explore what I wanted to do. That was at the end of May. Then I got my beautiful Luna, the Sprudel. I'll show you her another time. I'll save that for an episode all of its own. And I was home with her. I was taking her for walks. I was like training her. I was thinking about how I could buy people Christmas presents or make people Christmas presents that would be personal to them. And at the same time, I then went up to the toilet and my reed diffuser in my bathroom was empty. And I thought to myself, I wonder if I can use essential oils in my reed diffuser. So I started playing around. It was a bit of a science experiment. And I was like, okay, and what else could I do? Because not everybody likes a reed diffuser. People like a room spray, or they like candles, or they like wax melts. So when I first started the Little Self-Care Club, it was actually called Scents by Jodie. And my friend Bryony, I said to her about what I was thinking about doing and that I was going to tailor the essential oil blend to what that individual suffers with, like struggles with. And then I would make them a present. And she was like, why don't you just, that's a really good idea. Why don't you just do that as a business venture? And I was like, how would I even do that? She was like, make a load of stock and then come and do a Christmas stall here, which is where she was working at the time. She organised a Christmas fair. Have a stall here, see how you get on, see how it goes. And it went amazingly. And I had several other stalls over, like, because it was in the December by this point, had several other stalls in that time, and it went really, really well. That was December 2019. So March 2020 hits and everybody's locked down and stuck in their houses. And a certain brand of wax melt went absolutely bonkers. Bonkers. Everybody loved it. Everybody wanted these particular brand of wax melts. And at the time, everybody was scents by, scents with, scents blah, 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 blah. So I knew I needed to change my business name. And that's when I went through all of the rebrand, everything, so that all of the packaging is completely different now. So that I've got all of my branding, like my brand colours and everything were exactly what I wanted them to be. And we came up with the name, The Little Self-Care Club, because The Little Self-Care Club is about self-care. My products, my smelly products, if you like, because they're essential oil based, the whole point of them is, they make your room smell nice, but the point is they actually genuinely really help people. And I have incredible reviews about my products. And I can't wait for you to try them if you haven't already. So, like, I use them in my everyday life. Then I started developing the planners. So the notepads, the self-care notepads, and the self-care journals, and the self-care planners. There's now digital products. It all just grew basically and continues to grow, and I'm so proud of it. And I love when I hear back from my customers about how much my products are helping them, because a lot of people are a little bit like, oh really, okay, can that really do that? And then they try it and they're like, for example, the Unwind room spray, people use it as a pillow spray because it can be used as a pillow spray. And then they tell me what an amazing night's sleep they had, and that they haven't slept so well in years. So that brings me so much joy to know that I'm able to help people. So yeah, that's the start of the Little Self-Care Club, how it started that way, and why I do what I do and believe so strongly in self-care. I hope that I've given you a bit more of an overview of the Little Self-Care Club and why we are where we are. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you did enjoy this video and you would like to hear more, then please give this a like. As I say, drop a comment and subscribe. And I will see you tomorrow for day 5.